I didn't like it much.
Ooh, tell us about that. Please break that down. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
I know, and they're going to be throwing darts at me and stuff. But
Oh, keep it 100. Keep it 100.
it's just from my perspective. So I am a product of Odell's here in Baltimore, the Clubhouse in DC, uh, David Todd at Catacombs, and Tony Humphries at Zanzibar. These are mixed aficionados. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm going to the garage, and I just happened to go on a night where he was just letting records go off. And I was like, I can't take this. I can't take them sitting on the middle of the floor, like waiting for this something to happen, and he let the record go off. And I had come from all these masters at it. You know what I mean? I'm thinking the garage is going to be all this, and I only went twice, and both times it was a niche that I wasn't in tone with. To me, music was a continuum of melody, of blend, of you know what I mean, of message, and he would just arrogantly do stuff, and I felt like a DJ had to work. You know what I mean? And so my friends, I was there, and it was like, "Yo, this is the garage, yo. This is the joint." I'm like, "Nah, I'll be at the bus station."
Today is April 10th, 2025. Who are we speaking with?
Tommy Davis.
So many questions, but I will start with um hold on, let me find the right question to start with. Um,
Yeah, the teller untold. Yeah. No.
yeah. Uh, oh, here we go. This is a good one. As one of the founding fathers of the Baltimore house music scene, how would you define the Baltimore sound?
Well, it's a lot of depends what you're talking about. It has several genres, but what you're asking about is the Baltimore kind of gospel influenced soulful music. You know what I mean? That has a lot of bounce into it because back when the house was new, we had a lot of clubs here. We had a lot of clubs, and I was working in a record store, so I could pump the early house records, including my own, to people. And ever since then, Baltimore has a really thick house community. So that sound just took us to London and around the world, just doing with first originally was with DJ Spen. Nobody don't know that. And then came the Basement Boys.
Oh, school people, break that down.
So,
Educate us.
well, uh, the original record was a Jesse Owens where I was working in this big, various kind of record store. And this record came in on a white label and it just said on it. And it was a track that was repetitive and it sampled, I said, Funky Town in it. And my man Jesse did it. So Jesse Saunders just did it. And I almost lost my job over this record because only one came in and I fought for it. I was back then. I was a huge disco fan, huge. You know what I mean, huge. And this record was just dry rating all the way through, all the way through. So the owner said, "Well, I can sell it and get you some more." And I said, "If you do, I quit. I'll quit." And it wasn't called house music or nothing. It just was a record. So I was the first one. I mean, he actually part in turntables because he knows I could sell a lot of records. So never been heard of, at least in Baltimore. I can't speak anywhere else. Well, he gave me two turntables so I could take these records and mix them like he would do in a club. I was a big fan of the early New York, Zanzibar, well, not then Zanzibar, but the early sounds of mixing. So the customers could come in, not only buy the records, but they also could buy the turntables, and of course beepers and pagers and stuff. It was that kind of store. Incense, it was that kind of store. So later on I moved to another store and I became the buyer. So that gave me connects. So me and Byron Stingley and some other people that wasn't doing records could make a connection. So I had connections in New York for imports, in Chicago for anything that came out in Chicago, which started off with it was hard for me to find that Jesse Owens records, but I could find some other labels that was just doing this electronic sound that wasn't as soulful as music is now. It was energy. It was the best part of a disco record condensed. So then one day this guy came in. He was a young guy. He was like 16, and he was with his homeboys and stuff, and they heard this sound, and they went home and made a cassette. And the cassette, they came back. They didn't steal. They used this record, and they came back laughing because they were hip hop guys. They came in and said, "Hey, we made one of your records." I mean, because they heard the style. It wasn't even called house then. You know what I mean? It was called just club music. And this record was called Get the Hole. This record, so I said, if you go home and fix it, because it was a rough demo. I said, you kind of fix it and straighten it up and arrange it. I'm a big fan of arrangements and the way stuff go because I hung out in clubs all the time, and to get records back then that was strictly aimed for the dance floor, it's a technique to do that. And they came back and that held me to my word, and I printed it on an acetate. And in a record store, when people would come in, and sometimes in this store, it would be 50 to 100 people in there just listening to amped up sounds and buying records. So I had racks and racks of records, and everything from classics to the new stuff and early rap. It was called rap records because it was a few. So I would give them all these records. So these guys came back and I put an acetate on. I just put it on and covered the label up of the acetate just to see if people wanted to buy it. And there was a huge demand. So this record that had like modern romance in it, Can You Move, and slowed down and banging with beats on it. So I put it out. Eventually I put it out about a month later. And this record blew up, went to Chicago, and they loved it. And it was contemporary with what the sound was coming in. So and then it went to London, and then it went to a lot of places. And we had no idea, me being a producer, it's like, I didn't know this was going to happen. And this record just took off. And all of a sudden, these guys, they didn't take it seriously because they was doing hip hop. They was in a group called Newmarks, and they had just did this record that Milli Vanilli sang called "Girl, You Know It's True." This record blew up. So at the same time, they didn't want to be confusing their audience by saying, "Well, we did this." So I came up with a name that the people in the store came up with. So they would come in the store and they would say, did you get that record by them niggas yet?" And I was like, "No, it's not in yet," because it took like 2 months to do it, to print it and ship it from New York. And when they asked me what the name I'm put on it, I said, "You know what? Put it what that people call it." So it's called Get the Hoe by DEMIGGAZ. You know what I mean? So because that's what the people would say, yo, when them records by them coming in. This record just took off and it started this whole Baltimore scene. So some of the early records, I was one of the first ones that was a hometown Baltimorean that was, let's say, introducing to a market that few people did that wasn't a band. Back then there were bands, there was, gospel artists and stuff like that, reggae artists that did their records, but nobody in dance. So that just built a relationship with this young guy named DJ Spen. And eventually, Teddy Douglas, who's in another record store, and Jay Steinhour, we did these early records with Alternate Take. So Alternate Take one day came in the record store and said, "I want to be on a record." I said, "You really? All right, sing something right now." And the store is kind of crowded. So I made her step up into the counter and she sang loud. And I said, "Okay." So me, Jay, and Teddy took her to the studio, and that's how It's Over Now got made. So that was a very young Ultra at the time, and we're not thinking about we need to make money or nothing. We never thought like that. You know what I mean? It was just to be a part of a culture. You know what I mean? To actually be a part of a culture where we felt like we was emulating or producing a sound that we thought was relevant because Ultra comes from clubs. Our garage club was a club called Odell's, and we would be in there 3 times a week. And this guy named Wayne Davis would come with DJ, and he would play these New York cuts. He would go to the garage and come back and play Heartbeat and, these kind of classics, Gwen Guthrie and stuff like that. So it introduced them in the nightlife. So when we started doing these records, we just hoped that somebody would play them. Who knows that, years later, Ultra be international, doing concerts all over the place. And so that answered the question, and I kept going. I'm sorry. I kept going because it's an incredible journey that I never thought. I'm 66 now. I never thought that I would be doing it that long. It was to me just something I had to do. Not so much try to make money out of it. I never thought I would sell thousands of the first record. And then when we did Basement Boys, Archie got picked up in England. So we went. If you go see the early videos, don't laugh. Because me and Teddy was her background dancers in the video. So all of a sudden the world was opening up for this new sound. So that created this Baltimore sound that other people did. Other producers said, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And that is the introduction of that Baltimore sound.
Thank you. That's great. What do you think differentiates the Baltimore sound from other styles of music or other sounds?
I don't think there's any difference, except for Baltimore is like an Apollo. So you can't do a record that doesn't fit the niche of what's going on. So as of now, it's Afro. You know what I mean? It's Afro and Soulful House. But back then, it was a techno-y import sound. You know what I mean? But we were influenced by the legendary Tony Humphries, and me, Teddy, and Jay would go up to the Zanzibar and give him reels. And Tony's an expert on a reel to reel. He'll take that reel and play it. So when he played It's Over Now in the Zans and then on BLS, this record blew up. People was asking for this record. So everything we ever gave him, he would play. He would, so still to this day, I think of him like Uncle Tony. Because, he did things, he heard the sound long before the people knew about it. He said, I like the sound. And he called it, he said, y'all got a Baltimore sound. That's the first time we ever heard that, because we was trying to be like some legendary people we knew, Boy Jarvis, um, early Curry Chandler's. Well, yeah, was it Curry? Just records that Tony would play. If you went to the Zanzibar, Tony had a style that was very bass heavy, very drum heavy, and we would go up there and stay until it was time to leave. So to do that sound, those were the attempts to copy it, to actually make other records like it.
I love that. I love that. Is house music today better than it was before, or is house music before better than it is today? And that question is from Sheba, by the way.
Okay, all right. That's just a matter of perspective. What I mean, there's very few people my age that remember the early house records. So their concept of house is only relative from the late 90s, if that. So their perspective doesn't go far back. It doesn't go back to early Farley Jackmaster Funk, early records from DJ International with Jam Silk and Chip E and Mr. Lee. And these records were classic house records, you know what I mean, to a house head. But people don't remember back then because they weren't around. It was probably in elementary school. But these records became something different. So me as a salesman, I could sell that. You know what I mean? I could sell that besides the major label stuff that they put out to be big, pop, but with a dance sound on it. So when I got to know all these guys, because what I would do is get on the phone and call them and just trace down records. You know what I mean? And people would come from several states to come to this record store to get these hard to find records, because a lot of people originally didn't like house. Believe it or not, they didn't. They said it's dumb. It don't have no melody. You know what I mean? It was for the energetic, the people that just wanted to dance. You know what I mean? So what it did in Baltimore is made people become DJs that could take records and breaks and do stuff with them, even as a DJ. So our DJs here are incredibly skilled at that because that was the sound that was coming in the underground culture. And they could watch me in a record store do it, and I'm doing what I saw Tony do and Wayne Davis did, and all of a sudden people were buying mixers. You know what I mean? This was the early introduction to mixers. So before then, a DJ was a person that let the record go off. You know what I mean? Each rec put a record on, let it go off. If there was no mix and sync beats together, there was none of that. It was find trick ways to get records to go. Wait to the break, wait to the end, throw a acapella. You know, there was no, I mean, when the mixer first came out. So we watched this all of a sudden start happening. We saw other producers that started happening. It's Pope, it's OG, it's early Charles Dawkins, it was a whole bunch of stuff. And when we did Crystal Waters and we went pop, this was just an unbelievable journey. It's like we didn't plan this, we was just doing a sound that we was comfortable with. And because all the elements involved was Tony and some other people, I mean, early days, hanging at the New York winter seminar in New York, and being elbow to elbow with Frankie Knuckles and and people from all over when it was in New York. So we would go up there with cassette tapes and pass them out. We would go out there because at these seminars you could be elbow to elbow with record execs. So you could personally give them this thing and hope that they listen to it. So to me, I like the early house sound only because I always liked that kind of drum driven, you know what I mean? Sound like a DJ that's really good that can just go jack, 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 jack your body, jack, 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 which originally was just a piece of a record you could take. So when they took Let No Man Put Us Under and made Jack the Body, it was easy for those people that's in a club to relate to the music, of it with a new kind of lyrics on it. And we were younger then. So back then the youth controlled the sound. You know what I mean? So as of lately, you go to a house party, they're 40, 50, they don't they actually the knees can't move that hard. And they kind of sway with music. So the music grew older with them. So now when you go out, it's more mature. It's more neo house. You know what I mean? It's more uh, Afrocentric because it doesn't, you don't have to sweat. You can just sway or shuffle or Latin cha cha to it. That's because there's many reasons for it. But most, to me, the biggest reason is they got older. They started off at one place and the music had to adapt with their age. So I wouldn't compare one to the other. My personal is that because that is been the drive for me of the whole time. Is that I love this kind of sound as a DJ that I could take it and put it with the classics. I could play visual and throw a house record in it. You know what I mean? And it'll fit perfectly. Where others didn't feel like they belonged in the same set.
Tell us a story about the Paradox. What is the Paradox? Where was it? What did it smell like? How did people dance? How was the sound system? What was the fashion? Like, paint a picture of somebody who's never been to the Paradox. Break it down for us.
Okay, depends where you from. So the Paradise was a warehouse club. That was a punch warehouse club. No alcohol. You went to the Paradise. You went to dance. You know what I mean? You If you did anything else, you did in the corner by yourself. But the club itself didn't do drugs. So originally, it was another club before it called Fantasy. So the guy I mentioned, Wayne Davis, who is like the Godfather, which would be equal to Timmy Regisford in New York to us, you know what I mean? Or Ron Hardy in Chicago. It would be that he was that guy for us because we were 17, 18, and this guy was playing something that the radio wasn't playing nothing like this. And we would go out and dance, and it had some remnants of disco. So when that club ran it out of its time, he opened a warehouse. And this warehouse club was used to be like a storage house. So he would go get he went and got a Richard Long sound system. And a lot of people, if you're too young to know this, it is, you won't find a sound that sounds like a Richard Long sound system now. It just was the best hardcore bass driven night actual tweeters. And so when you play these records, it amplified power in a warehouse, then they found a place that had space. The earlier clubs didn't have a lot of space. This was the first time Baltimore saw a urban African American centered club that would do it without the fights, without the drugs. You know, I don't know, but without alcohol. And because of that, you know, alcohol kind of starts fights. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It kind of makes people not be their normal self. But this club was punch driven. So when you went in, you could hear the bass from outside. What imagine walking into the club and you can hear just the bass shaking the walls, and it kind of makes you like, I can't wait to get in here. I can't wait to get in here. So when you get in, you walk around this corner, and you can see this huge floor with lights. He made sure it had the disco kind of like just lights, like you know, if anybody been to a club, those kind of lights, and they wasn't bright all the time. They were darkened down, and it wasn't about spotlighting the dancer. There was no cell phones. So you know, your idea of a good time was talking to people, dancing with people. You know, that's people would meet people they didn't know, but you had one thing in common: you loved this music, and it was one of the few places you could go get this music pure. You know, not top 10. I'm gonna play some of this, and some of that. This club would play straight until 4 or 5 in the morning. So over the years, it just kept going. He kept updating it. So besides that, it had two rooms. It had a back room near a basketball court and an outside patio. So he could have two DJs. So he would put a DJ kind of different, but the same in the back room. So some people, you have to be from a club to take high amplified sound for hours, you know. So newcomers, they need to have somewhere to go walk away and take the tissue out their ears. Because if you never been in loud decibel music, it's kind of abrasive the first couple of times you go in there. But for us club heads, we stick our heads in the speaker. We've already lost a couple of decibels. So it had that kind of uh, vibe to it. You know what I mean? Where you go in this huge room, let's say the size huge, I mean huge, where a club so big that you could find your spot. So the first thing a club here does is when they go into a party, and we still do it, is find your sweet spot. So you had points in the club because it was a Richard Long sound system, and it was built by Wayne and but the club itself, and the sound was handled by many people. So this club just had it all, and it wasn't always bright. You know what I mean? It would back then clubs went to a mood. If you as a dancer, it didn't just blink, 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 blink all night. It moved with the songs. It moved with the energy. It moved with the crowd. It could be every bit of 800 people in there, just on the dance floor dancing. All kinds of people. No hang-ups about, oh, it's some gay people, oh, it's some white people, oh, it's some, oh, you know what I mean, some older people. It's not, it was about the music. It wasn't about anything else. So when you were in this club, it just was incredible. And he made sure that he gave Baltimore the kind of sound that New York was known for. You know, like Bonds or, you know, or Red Zone or even Nickel Bar. You know what I mean? Even just this vibe, you know what I mean, that was there. Or, you know, and he was a fan of Junior Vasquez. So he made sure it had equal to the Sound Factory. So we appreciate it. We love him to death. He's still alive and he's still DJing. But we love him to death because he gave us something that these youth don't get. They don't get a chance to explore outside of what they normally hear. And we was okay to go in there and dance to Walk Like an Egyptian. You know what I mean? Because he would play these unique records and introduce us to something we wasn't getting nowhere else. So when you became a fan, you didn't miss a week. You was there every Saturday for this party. It was right near some, you know what, it was right near some train tracks. So you could be on a dance floor and the music is banging and you could hear a train coming, wah, wah, and we would start screaming on the dance floor because it sounded like a sound effect. We would have it was just one of the days I don't think ever will come back.
Wow. Wow. Um, I want to do some other walkthroughs like that, but now I want to pivot. Talk to me about the Basement Boys. You were one of the founding members, and then you since left. We'll talk about the leaving later. Let's talk about how did you meet Teddy? How did you meet Jay? How did you meet DJ Spen? And how did that come together? Basement Boys. Tell us the origin story from your perspective.
Well, from my perspective, it was spiritual because I can't account for it. I can't say I was smart. I can't say that I knew what to do. I can't say I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I can't attribute it to anything but being your path. So I already mentioned how I met Spen at 16. He was a master hip hop DJ. You know, at 360 Revolution, for those of people who are not DJs, if you hear a record and when you watch the DJ scratching, there are DJs that just go zigga, 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 but there's also DJs that can technically redo a record. They could take Run DMC, no, LL, Rock the Bells, and just go rock the bells, rock the bells, rock the bells, bell, 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 bells, perfectly. And very few can do it, but Spin did. One day he came in the store before it get the hole, and he was buying records. You know, I got to know a lot of people because they're customers. So I gave everybody the same amount of attention. So somebody said, you know, he's a really good DJ. So I asked him to come up, which we were displaying where the cash registers and stuff was up high because they sold also beepers and all that kind of stuff. And he got up there and he said, what you want me to do? I said, I want you to show what you can do. And the store had maybe 50 people in it. And it's a very small store, very small. And he tore the store up. So all of a sudden I was like, dude, you can come here and play anytime because you are a technician. You know what I mean? I've heard a lot of people do it, but they wasn't as tight as him. You could tell that he went home every day after school and practiced and just practice and practice and practice. So he did the first time and then he did the next time. And then that's when we got to get the whole. I think I mentioned that Teddy also worked in a record store, but another one. So we kind of shared this love for the sound of Philly and Lamont Dozier and Holland. You know, we was just audio fights. You know what I mean? That was going to look for DD Sharp or look for, MSFB or look for a Bob James record that's perfect for the club or, look for Tries Our Love, the record long before it was a club. We was looking for the original version because when we went up New York or Jersey, they was playing it like it was a classic. So we hunted for these records to give to the Baltimoreans. So we just got closer and closer. So we started hanging out and just writing songs in play, just playing around and saying, we should write a song like this, we should write a song like this. And when one day Jay said, I got some equipment, and one thing led to another, and we just started with basic stuff, just playing around. And Jay just invested more. He went to school to study studio engineering. And as he got better, we got better. So at the time, this was in his house. So the first record we did was a record with Teddy, and we never thought it was gonna come out. It was called Love Don't Live Here. And this record came out from Jump Street Records in New York. And once again, I mean, just in the early beginning, Ted didn't never want to do it. He was just singing because we was working on tracks when you don't have a singer, somebody got to sing. So this record took off in New York. And it was like, wow, they're playing us on BLS, or you know what I mean, and those kind of things to guys that were very, very enamored by great artists like and producers like Shep Pettibone or uh early Philly records, like Teddy Pendergrass records, and we're trying our best to emulate it with a beat. You know what I mean? Because we were playing the records, but they didn't have the kind of beat driven things to make things. So house was new. Very house was really almost non-existent. A lot of people don't know this, but prior to house, New York was the place. They had the sound, the sound. So house kind of spent off when Frankie left New York and went there. And him and Ron Hardy was playing these classic records. You would go in there and you would hear Lenny Williams, you know, something like this, and they made it sound so good. So that sound, like Chicago, we wanted to emulate. We wanted to, it's like, hey, we want to do records like this. So that first record was a Rolls Royce classic called "Love Don't Live Anymore" that we made a dance record, and that just took off, and that's how we got to Ultra and Jay and um, I think I'm trying to remember the rest of your question. I think I covered most of them.
So basically, like, how did you meet Jay, Spen, Teddy, and then how the collaboration? Talk to us about. Hold on, let me pull up this question here. Uh, we talked about Get the Hole. We talked about. Talk to us about. Um, Ultra Nate's Free.
Well, that was her when she first left from Warner Brothers. So Free came after Warner Brothers. Let me explain. So this whole phenomenon of house music, A&R people all of a sudden wanted to jump on a bandwagon. So our sisters and brothers, which would be that I still look at as sister brothers, would be 10 City, you know what I mean, inner city. And these we got the bigger deals, you know, just because we had a sound. And so every A&R person was looking for this to put on because the major labels was selling a lot of them. All right. And after a while, they couldn't sell as much as they liked. So, right, because they tried to homogenize it. You can't homogenize a feeling. You know, you can't just put some of the old stuff and, well, this will work. And you have A&R people that barely hung in a club. You know what I mean? So they would fight to have the music sound, have some of the sound that was previously that is not house. So Ultra went to Warner Brothers, and then she went from Warner Brothers UK to Warner Brothers here in Baltimore. I mean, in the United States. And after that, when the A&R people lost interest and hip hop was blowing up, was bubbling. So guess where the A&R people went to? They went to this new thing, which they could actually sell quicker, you know what I mean, and to a younger audience, but you know, that kind of was looking for this new sound, early hip hop stuff, you know. So the only reason why I'm aware because I was in a record store selling them. So when Ultra did that, she started working with other people like Strictly Rhythm and some other things because she was ready. She was built for the lifestyle when she after she was off and running. So she was traveling the world, and I think we had performed in Zanzibar to early days. So that when that happened, you know, she did this record not with us, with someone else, and she wrote Free. And this record was a phenomenon. This record just took off. It gave her a more polished kind of sound, you know what I mean, and with a well written song and that actually had the legs. You need legs for promotion. So it had the legs to do international thing. If it was dependent on United States, it would have never happened. A lot of us, believe it or not, depended on international exposure to do what we had to do. Because America just doesn't embrace anything that they can't sell to everybody. They only want to deal with money. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we can sell this, we can do that. So it's when Free was gone, she was already left Bass on Boys. She was, you know, she was already. And over the years, we have learned that that's the best thing that happened to our artists. There was no animosity. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you're going on and you're taking a piece with us, with you. You know what I mean? Because we are part of your story. So from there, she just got bigger and bigger and more a pop artist. you know what I mean, still doing dance music. So, and she, here's a funny story. So we was in DC. They used to have seminars in DC. We was really, really focused on going to seminars wherever we could get to, because the seminars you can meet people that you just never would meet. So we went to DC, and this girl came up, and I say girl, not to be a young girl. I mean, just a woman came up and said, "Here's my cassette. I want you to listen to." And it was a jazz smooth thing. And this girl was Crystal Waters. So we said, "Hey, can you write for Ultra?" And she said, "Yeah, sure. And we'll still do some of your stuff. We just gotta make it dance because that's what we do and that's what we're known for." So she wrote She's Homeless for Ultra. But she did it so well that we said, "No, we're gonna put it out with you on it." so
Wow.
a record that would have been Ultras made Crystal Waters who she is today. So, and we did it, and because we were DJs, Teddy had a residence at a club here in Baltimore, and we would all hang out because Ted would play, classics, and he still does to expertly play them, and we played that record, and when they went crazy, it was like, wow, this record has got something to it. And I don't want people to assume that we just did that one record. A lot of people assume, even now with Quantize, they assume that y'all got so many hits. It's like, yeah, but it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall. People steady looking what's stuck on the wall, but they're not looking on the floor what didn't. And we had stuff that didn't, you know what I mean? But Ultra and Crystal just took off. And that, and so at one time, all of a sudden at this rise of house, so unprecedented. We was on four majors at one time. We was on MCA, CBS, Warner Brothers, and Mercury. This is something where we wasn't even equipped to do that. You know what I mean? But this demand for this more raw, soulful sound, you know what I mean, that had a modern twist on it. We was just at these places with these demos and saying, "Hey, here's something we did. Here's something we did." And in this business, it's not about your music; it's about who you know. So by being elbow to elbow with people, and constantly, we made our own jackets. We made and sold emblems on the Basement Boys, just to make sure that we had a chance. So we would go to New York or go to DC, anywhere that we could learn information, because you could sit on panels and learn about publishing, performance and royalties and all the things you need. You just can't be good. You have to understand the business. So in those places, how we did it. So we would meet people and say, "Here's a cassette." So Jay, and Ted was shocked when Tonight came out and Junior Vasquez was playing it. And so MCA came to us and said, "We want to put that on. Matter of fact, we want to do a whole album." But we was already doing a lot of stuff. He said, "But can we use an alias?" And he said, "Sure, whatever you want." And we made an alias called Those Guys. So, right. Right. So those guys, just everybody is going, "Tell them that I want to make," and they had this weird intro that Junior would play, what I mean, that's for Color Girls Only. What I mean? She's talking about making love in a Buick. And it had a quirkiness that people really liked. And, what I mean? And Neil Conway, who also did Gypsy Woman, did the music. So Neil is just a genius at his chord productions and stuff like that. So between Neil and some other musicians that we early worked with, these records were people kind of liked. So Bobby Shaw at MCA said sign it. So next thing you know, we did this group called Mass Order called Lift Every Voice. And so this all of a sudden CBS is saying, "Hey, we want to do an album with Mass Order." I said, "Okay, long." We saying, "Okay, long as it can't it's shown say Basement Boys," because we wasn't trying to be an artist. You know what I mean? We was like, okay. So Mark Eugene, this record we did and somebody booted it and sold it in small record stores. and that just promoted it crazy. You know what I mean? It was we thought it was a bad thing, but it also made a buzz for this record that had Lift Every Voice in it with Lil Rita Holloway saying, take me away in the chorus. And the song had something they really liked because it talked about house. It talked about, a unity, what I mean, a bond, what I mean. It had some kind of we shall overcome vibe to it. And people used it as an anthem, and they still do. So now we on CBS, Warner Brothers, and MCA. So then Crystal Waters writes a song for Ultra, but we playing the demo that she wrote. And Mercury says, "Hey, we're gonna put an album with Crystal Waters." Now we going like, "What? Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We're gonna be on Warner Brothers, Mercury, MCA, and what I left out, CBS." So we get a call from CBS saying, from Thommy Mottola, of all people. We go in CBS, and these guys are from Baltimore. We like, wait a minute, wait a minute. We walking through a long hallway, platinum records. It's long. It's like the Wizard of Oz. When the lion runs, it's like that. We overwhelmed, like, oh my God. We run into, I think it was De La Soul in the hallway. We was like, what? Or was it Tribe? No, it was De La. Or Jungle Bros. No, it was De La. So we was like, we can't believe it's happening. I hope we say and do the right things. We go in, Thommy Mottola office, got more awards sitting everywhere. He behind a big desk, and he's talking to us like fact of the matter. I like the song. I want to sign this song, which was Mass Order. It's like, wow. And we knew Thommy Mottola, of course, from Session La Femme. Thommy Mottola lives on. Right? Like, what? What? So these average guys are watching things. This is why I began with saying some things none of us will ever claim. So a lot of things people think that we were lucky, or that it had nothing to do with the world was wanting something different, and we just had the right amount of pressure. Baltimore is not the city of love. You know what I mean? So and oppression and the desire to get out pushes people to do work a little bit harder. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what, we will not be denied. So we was in a basement. So when we had to come up with the names, like, well, we kept throwing names around and said, wait a minute, Basement Boys, that sounds good. So our early thing was in a basement. I mean, Crystal Waters sang Homeless in a shower. That we put blankets up to insulate it. So after all these majors come at us, and they're offering us mega deals, like, you know what, can you deliver an album? It could be something like $150,000. So we like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And what the issue was, it was faster than our growth. You know what I mean? And majors, like anything, they want to clean and polish up. You can't polish up house. If it's a hit, you leave it alone. You know what I mean? Put it out. If New York and Chicago and London is playing this record, you don't have to change it. But you can't tell majors that. You got people that feel like I'm making it better. So we need to clean it up, take some of the bass out the kick. You know what I mean? Let's do it, make her sing it over again. And whenever we did that, it lost the funk. So we became fighters. Say, you know what? If you like this record, you're coming to us, you have to put it out the way we did it. Which they don't like. You know what I mean? They don't like that. There's a lot of people that want to wear some of the credit to a record. So they come in and they says, well, I made sure I want to be a part of it. We want to polish all up. It's like, you can't polish up underground. You just can't. I mean, we was fortunate enough that we could do some of the things and fight through mastering, fight through everything, because back then records didn't have incredible bass. They don't want them. So if a major came in, we insisted, like, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to tell Herb Martin, the legendary master, that he can't change that bass much. He can clean it up and put another one. He can, do whatever he wants to, but it has to go like this. because that is they don't understand that house is driven by bass, where most other genres is driven by other instruments. Rock is guitar, you know what I mean? Jazz is the ad lib and freedom of jazz chords, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna get complicated in the chords, but jazz just made a history of being a great composers that did this new structure of jazz chords that spent off from gospel, you know what I mean? And we're a spin off of all that, so the majors just didn't get it and they wouldn't let it stay pure. You know what I mean? So it was kind of hard. And to be honest, in any situation, when they can, they just watching to see how you do it. And I'm going to get somebody different, if you know what I mean. In other words, I'm going to find Elvis to do it. And I can sell way more. It's just business. It's not really a discrimination thing. It's just business to them. It's like, hey, if I can get Elvis to do it, I can sell way more. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's just the way of the world. I don't think it's actually about discrimination. It's about what sells more. So to study us as a culture, African Americans, we're at the root of most music. To be honest, most music we're at the root of, and then when they see it have something that's special, they figure out how to do it to reach other people. Because some people refuse to look like me and you and like a record. So they tried everything to do that. Well, so after Ultra and Crystal and Mass Order and Tonight, and then New Groove, 33rd Queen, and Sub Level and Profile. So at one time we was on 7 labels at once. Now we still had daytime jobs. So we would get off from work 5, 6 o'clock, go in the basement and work on these songs till 3 or 4 in the morning and have to get up and go to work at 8. But after a while, it takes a toll. So after Crystal, and they was asking us, now we did one record here, one record here, one record there, and a whole bunch of in between. But they said, hey, we need 22 songs to pick from an album for Crystal. I said, wait a minute, how are we going to do 22 songs and do 22 for Ultra and do 22 with Mass Order and do 22 for Tonight? So we had a meeting, just I sit down and said, we have to let our day jobs go. And to me, music and record store was everything. It's your fingers on the pulse. I said, if we let this go, this better work. This better work. So we did, and it was the best thing we did because we could concentrate more on studying the business and the music. And that is really hard for anyone doing music now. It's that when you get to that spot, when you have to sacrifice something else, which is taking care of your family, guarantees, and stuff like this, music is not a guarantee, not at all. So you get to a point and you can't meet the demand. It was a hard point, and for us, it was a major thing. So we had to say, okay, you know what? We need to move out of the basement. We bought a studio, a big studio. And when it got to California, got an SSL board. You know what I mean? No longer a whole bunch of out gear equipment. We just moved up. And so if they're going to ask for it, we have to deliver. We have to be able to do the same sound, but quality. So, and one of the reasons that did that, another funny story, is we did, what is his name? Little Anthony Rod the Rhythm. So they came to Atlantic, said, hey, can you do this record? Can you make a house version of this record? And we did, and they didn't like the way the sound, again, it was rough, Basement Boys. So they said, well, they didn't even ask us. All of a sudden they said, well, we got this guy to do it. His name is Little Louie. I was like, really? It's like, yeah. So Louie takes the chords and stuff from what we did and with early people like Dave Morale, whatever, and they polished it up to what the label wanted. And this record blew up. And then Louis, who is now Louis Vega, went from, I don't, for those people that might be listening to this, and music was really wide dimension. So you had Miami bass, you had, like cover girls, and you had all this kind of thing. It was really a broad thing. So Louis, becoming just like us, started doing house. You know what I mean? Because that record blew up. And to this day, we just are kind of symbiotic because, you know, we remember how we got from being small guys to big guys. So that just over the years, and over the years we got to do other things. You know, actually being able to talk to Frankie Knuckles or walk up to anybody and say, "Hey, I'm the Basement Boys," and they say, "What?" Like, and we're very humble. So that one thing we learned is that prior to that, musicians and DJs was aloof. If you walked up to them and they say, "I don't know you," but we was all about, "Hey, we love this vibe. I love what you do," and stuff like that. And when you get more and more medals across your chest, you can talk to them. You could walk up to Joe Clausell and say, "Hey, I'm I'm Thommy Davis." Said, "Who?" "I'm one of the Basement Boys." "Oh, nice to meet you." You know what I mean? So we tried to change that. It's like, you know what? Because when we watched the A&R people abandon house, we realized that we have more power. We can't depend on that. You know, we have to build a network of people that we find out how to survive. Because at one point, house was great to disappear. It was great to disappear. You know, all of a sudden, radios don't want to play it anymore. No, that's old. That's a trend that's gone. And we had to find another way to survive. Did I answer all that question? I might have went even further into it, but
That was fantastic. Uh, Fantastic. It covered like 10 questions at once. Um,
okay. I apologize.
question.
I do a lot of
No, no, don't apologize. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Like we talked about in the beginning, this is everything I'm looking for. Question for you. How did you know when you made it?
I don't know. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. You know, when I think it'll make it, when I can consider it, is when I could play in South Africa, Ibiza, and London, and the bigger festivals. Right now, they select a very few promoters run the game. You know what I mean? So me, for those of people who don't know me, I a couple of years ago, I realized with the advent of the phones, whenever I was DJing, there was phones staring at me with these bright lights. You know what I mean? It's like, what's going on? Why aren't they dancing? And at first, I was adamant about like, hey, can you cut your phone off? And then I realized that, you know what? I can't stop this. How about I give them something to film? So one thing led to another. I would play at the small club called Buns, which is like a nickel bar kind of club. Very gay, because gay people, the gay culture invented house. To be honest, they invented it, and you only time you heard those original records was in gay friendly clubs. So I insisted on always playing in them because to me they invented it. You know what I mean? They made Let No Man Put Us Under a hit. They made Heartbeat a hit. They made Boy Jarvis a hit. Music is the key. I mean, music is the answer, and Colonel Abrams and all that stuff always started easier in a gay club because they wasn't so stuck of being one thing. They was very much into a message, very much into a groove, very much is like, I'm not gonna tell you what to play, you know, turn me out. And you know, I came here not to hear what I could hear around the corner. I came here for this sound. So that whole thing is why I kind of stuck with it. So when the labels and the whole population said, the same thing happened. Remember, I don't know if people remember this, but they burnt disco records in a stadium and said disco sucks. So those that can't dance saw something being a phenomenon. You know what I mean? Big. Anytime you got Ethel Merman singing disco, you know it's gone huge. And everybody tried to do this thing. And eventually, those that don't dance or those that don't want to see a mix of cultures said, this got to stop because disco brought cultures together. It was ironic. We was just talking about what we had to do, leave our jobs. And it leads all the way up to Quantize and Cold Red Recordings, where Spen and the introduction of Spen to the Basement Boys. And we didn't get there yet, but my whole life is music. So I'm constantly talking to producers, writers, vocalists, artists, contracts. You know, it's not all fun. You know, I have close friends that say, "Oh, I bet you're having fun," until they actually see what I have to do, and it's like it's not all fun. It's a job just like your job. I just love my job. So to work with great artists like Timmy Regis for Vega and Mark Francis and Terry Hunter and David Harness and stuff is a dream come true for someone like who is music. So I apologize for having to end that call, but there's certain things that you have to do, especially when you know that somebody might be in England. You know what I mean? It's not like we can't communicate, but things are on a deadline.
No, I get it. It's all good. That's why I said take the call. It's all good. All right. So you met Spen, you met Teddy, you met Jay. You guys formed the Basement Boys. You
Mhm.
had hits. Um, talk to me about what was it like walking down the red carpet at the Grammys, representing underground dance music?
Um, by the time that happened, well, before that was the American Music Awards with Crystal Waters. All of a sudden, we had platinum and gold records on the wall. It's like unbelievable. Um, but this happened for a record that we did with Crystal Waters, and we was in Miami for Winter Music. So it no longer was in New York. It had moved to Miami. So we go to Miami. We walk in a club, and they're playing this record as a promo. It wasn't even out yet, and they was banging this record, and the people were singing with it. So that, like the Grammys and American Music
Which
Awards,
which which record was this? Which record was this?
homeless.
Homeless. Okay. Yeah.
So they sing a la da dee la da da on their first time hearing it. It's like what? So when you go to these things, there's certain things that everybody like that's new at these seminars, and everywhere we went, the people that had access to get Mercury promos was playing this record, and there's no better feeling than someone to watch something that you did that is really a part of your soul. You know what I mean? Because house is part of my soul. It's just and Teddy's and Jay. And so we're watching this record blow up. And so equal to going to the Grammys or getting American Music Awards and Billboard Awards. So all of a sudden we're being decorated. And we can't imagine how this happened because this was just something that was a hobby that we did for our own personal pleasure. Never thinking of ever printing a record, just doing it so that we could do what we called was a home style version of stuff that we loved. So the Grammys, I became a governor for the DC branch of the Grammys. So knowledge, I mean, I can't underline this enough. If you're in the music business, you have to have the knowledge. And it's always being updated and things. So I became a governor with the Grammys, trying to do a Baltimore chapter, you know what I mean, trying to help with bills and early fights for streaming laws because streaming came out of the blue. So I was getting connections that was saying, okay, you know what? As a governor, I could reasonably go to the Grammys. I went, and Tracy Hamlin was a director, up above president of things. So Tracy said, "Well, because you're a governor, you can go." So we went and walking a red carpet. Well, it wasn't as glamorous as it looks on TV. It's a dog and pony show. All right,
Explain that. Explain that.
so you get to be elbow to elbow with different artists, you know what I mean, and producers of all genres, and they're not the most friendly things in the world. They're kind of stuck up, and they only want to talk to who they want to talk to. And you could be sitting next to people. I'm a name a group, a boy group, and I'm sitting. I'm saying, "Aren't you?" And they was like, "Yeah," and they blew it up. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't in their circle of what they deem important. And I was like, I never want to do this again. Because I'd rather keep the illusion of what you are than to find out. that you've been in this business too long. So it's a security thing for them. You know what I mean? If you in it long enough, you just get tired of smiling and talking to people that has nothing, no benefits for you at all. So I didn't really fault them. I just didn't want to see them in that light at all. So, but still, the whole thing was great to actually see how it worked and the function, and it was more ecstatic about my friends saying, "I saw you walking on a red carpet," and my whole life is about reaching back and bringing other people with me. You know what I mean? To be able to do things and watch this whole thing. I mean, Basement Boys kind of brought a lot of other people, and I noticed that was more important than what was happening. You know what I mean? Something that should have burnt out as a trend as a fad. People saw that you could. You know what? Wow, you guys are on all these labels and you are down to earth guys, so maybe this could happen to me. Maybe maybe a black man can make it. It's like, yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? It's like it just keep going. And that's been my personal purpose since then. You know, from everything I do is like, hey, you know what? I want to do hit records, but I want you to be the hit. I want, you know, I want to help giving it. You you can't keep it if you don't give it away. It's, you know, I mean, my body's only gonna last 80 years, but my deeds will last for a long time. And so so I just make sure that I make sure that I remember there's people behind me, there's people that need help, and give it away, almost give it away, like, you know what, because that is what this scene is about. If we all only worry about what is happening with us, then the scene will die and you won't have anything. So we must give it away. We must do it that like that in order to still be relevant. So the Grammy thing, the whole reason why I was the Grammys and the thing, because they came to me, they wanted a Baltimore chapter. People had failed in it. And I was having a huge success with having a giant festival in Baltimore called Collective Minds. So they're like, dude, you got power. You know all the producers, you know all the DJs. So how about you run for governor? And I did because I was hoping to actually fight for legislation for streaming rights and stuff like this. Like right now, what happened is a shame that, you know, that streaming is one of the biggest platforms and you only get 0.0000 cents per play. So in order for you to make a good dollar, you have to get millions to actually get a good dollar. And it's still nowhere near what you would get in downloads and stuff like that. So unfortunately, streaming could be the death of independent artists. And so I thought by me going and fighting in Capitol Hill for the, you know, the Grammys and talking to delegates and stuff like this, that we could at least change some of these laws. So and not so much for me, but for the people that don't have a voice. You know what I mean? I had enough accolades to have a voice. So I brought a lot of other people with me. I also got people in memberships. You know, if you're listening to this thing and you have more than one or two records out, you could be a member of the Grammys. You just have to apply. And the more of us apply, like voting, the more people like us have a voice. You know, it's a bit. It's still a business. It's not vote by who's there popular. It's not like that. It's a fraternity. Like so, the members in a fraternity decide what happens. So I did it. I was like, you know what? I can't we can sit around here and complain all day, but to actually do things. So the Grammy that I only went once because I said I'm not doing that no more. They don't pay you for it. You have to pay for yourself. There's hotel, there's flights, there's what you're wearing. You know what I mean? Just to be sitting on something that looks better on TV than being there. And you know, another example, I was sitting with an artist, a woman artist that was very popular, and I just said, I love your music. And she looked at me like I was trying to steal her purse. And I was like, you know, I can't do this. I can't do this because I'm a smurf. I want to believe that we all in this together and all that kind of stuff. And you just destroyed that. So after the Grammys actually finished filming, I still was high on the fact that a little black boy from Baltimore, you know what I mean, could do this, could be sitting here in you know, the Grammys, you only can go if you're a member of the Grammys. So I'm sitting with other members. I'm in this fraternity. You know what I mean? So, which is a major accomplishment, and I'm trying to bring other people with me. You know, like, hey, you got a couple records out. This how you do it, and you submit this, do this application, do this, and stuff. That is not easily available to us. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and I say us in more than one way, but in house. You know, if people don't think it's real. If they're not house heads, they really think you're a joke, that you're a fad, or that you're something that doesn't make a lot of money. And to in the world, money is how they judge you. They don't care if 1,000 people covered homeless, and you know what I mean, and make a lot of money. They don't care. You know, like, did I make the money? No, no. I mean, the people, did they make the money? They don't care about that. They care about, how am I going to make money? And the Grammys was pretty much that. Even within the organization, it's everybody's trying to be the it sound, and house music is something that you can't fake. You know what I mean? It's like trying to fake hip hop. You're going to sound corny as hell. Said, I will make a hip hop record and you don't even understand it. You can't do that. So that's kind of frowned upon. You know what I mean? If you I'm doing something that you have to have my history, you have to have my oppression, you have to have my drive to do something against in the world, a black man in the world that don't want to see me. I'm have that drive is what makes house music that. You know what I mean? It makes it a a song of freedom, a song of survival, a song of beating odds, a song, you know what I mean? And you can't package that and just sell it. You have to go to the people that's living it. And that's not a good business move for them. It's not, you know, like a Rihanna or Beyonce or Doja Cat or whatever, but they can package and mold the way they want and sell it to everybody. So that was my fight for that, and through the years, that commitment is what makes Basement Boys, 33rd and the Queen, those guys, Mass Order, or songs that I've done with Jonathan Brown, and you know, many people. It's because when they finally meet someone that is not talking money, I'm talking about what you do. You know what I mean? I want to do this because it's going to outlive us. And that makes people drop their guards a little bit. It's like, hold it. Okay. I never heard someone talk like that before. I'm not chasing the money. I'm not chasing anything, because a house never was chasing the money. It was chasing a sound. You know what I mean? Chasing a message, a groove, a community. So I did a lot of research on it, and I realized that because of my ancestry, I'm from a culture that's drum. You know, the reason why I like the drum is because it's in my ancestry. There drums of war, there's drums of celebration, there's drums of this. And when you listen to house music, you hear drums of war, drums of celebration, you hear drums of, of community. And that's what makes house real. I mean, soulful house. It's what makes it that. It's because it has all those elements in it. If you try to do this thing called soul and you don't have that in it, it's a different kind of house. It's, you know what I mean? It's almost soulless. So that passion, that drive for it is the reason why I'm still doing it at 66, because, Lord knows I could sell real estate and make more money. But is that going to fill your soul? Am I going to watch people on the dance floor crying over a song I made? Bigger than the Grammy thing is to watch them singing a song, and it makes them emotional. I know I said too much, but
No, this is great. Next question. What is soulful house?
it's a big category. It depends what you're judging it by. If you judge it by downloads, which you have to make it hybrid, you know what I mean? Because it's all about numbers. So you have to make sure it encompasses more than just soulful house people. You know what I mean? So that is a battle we have to fight every day, because it might sound like I'm saying it's a bad thing, but when something crosses the ocean and other big name producers that are not African American adapt it, that is a good thing, because they have legs that I don't. You know what I mean? So that the house, soulful house community don't. So it only opens doors for us to come behind something we invented. Ain't that kind of odd? Right? It's kind of odd, but that's how the world works. You know, so it's a good thing. So soulful house is R&B, blues, gospel mixed together. And let me include one more thing that's real popular now: Latin. If you listen to a lot of the New Jersey artists, it's very much Latin influenced. You know what I mean? Maybe not in the culture of it, but the rhythms are. You know, the Latin community has rhythms. You know, they have rhythms, and we as househeads don't care where the rhythms come from. It's like, you know what? And in Jersey, they took it to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? With great producers like Beloved and Mike Francis and Timmy Regisford that take these cultural records. You know what I mean? Are they soulful? Yes. Do people call them soulful house? No. They, you know what I mean? They personalize it and make it, you know, I like Timmy sound, or I like Black Coffee sound, or you know what I mean? They we over the years have become opinionated about it. You know what I mean? Before it was like, I'll take it anywhere I can get it. Now people are opinionated about it. So Soulful House has many definitions now. You know what I mean? Many, 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 many. From black coffee to let me think, to Terry Hunter, to people in California like David Harness, to people in Texas. You know what I mean? Like rest in peace, Roman Anthony. That was ahead of the game before he passed. He just set the tone for gospel house. You know what I mean? These things are people's blood that put into this definition that we call soul house. And there's many, many more. I didn't name them all, but it is a big hodgepodge of contribution. That means that it has to tell a story. Even in rhythms, it has to tell a story. It has to, but even though they don't call rhythm soulful house, but when it's to sing a song, so it has to have the appeal of a normal song. So it's if Gladys Knight was new and came out, she would be doing soulful house because we would put those beats under it so that people could dance to it. You know what I mean? Because people don't do basement parties anymore. So now you have a bigger audience and you have a whole bunch of people. You know, we have arrived as a house community when you go to a wedding and they could play everything else, but at the end of the night, what do they play? House. And that means we have arrived. You know what I mean? It is the majors that don't get it. And if they would keep going to weddings and to retirement parties and realize that from young and old, at the end, they're playing Follow Me and Brighter Days and certain things that they have adapted into their culture. So, like, you know what? The majors don't see that as profitable because it is cultural. They don't see, like, right now, the fan dance, it's a cultural thing. If the Matrix was on it, it would have been $1 million thing because everybody loves doing it. But they don't have the foresight for that. You know, they want instantaneous, already boxed up. It's, you know, like if they jump on it, it's way more money because it wouldn't just end in our culture; it would spread to other cultures. Because normally, what we like, everybody like. If you, you know, from jazz, blues, house, whatever. Even my mother, if I'm working on a song and she hears it, she'll come down dancing. It's like, I like that. So Soulful House is really soul music with a beat, plain as day. Just like the Temptations are not like the Four Tops, and Donna Ross is not like the Four Tops. You know, it's soulful. You can't just say one sound. I can't say, well, but it's not Muddy Waters. You know, like, no, it is that bigger John. And then you get Soulful House now. It's about the producers because the producers put the energy on it. You know what I mean? It takes you know perseverance to say, you know what, this record is not going to get on TV. It's not going to make a movie. It may not get taken overseas, but I'm still going to do it. That takes a producer, executive to say, you know what, I'm going to spend money, time, and effort effort to do something that by the standards shouldn't might not get well. So you got those of us that don't care about that. Like, you know what? It's still a legacy. It's a legacy that we earned.
So well said. Um, Sheba asked me to ask you about, let me find the question here. Tell us the history and origin story of the Collective Minds House Music Festival. When did it start? How did you get the idea? How long has it been going? What inspired you? Like, give me the soup to nuts.
Right. Well, I just spoke to this with some other people on my radio show. And it started in 2001. A group of people that said, you know what, they doing something in Chicago called Chosen Few. Now in Baltimore, we don't consider Chicago as the or where it came from, because simultaneously Baltimore did the same thing. You know what I mean? And so who started it is not important to us. So what works somewhere else that it has an urban city and has an urban population, we know it can work for us. So yeah, I was around and they all included us together and said, hey, let's do this festival in a park here in Baltimore. No license, no permit, no nothing. We just brought speakers and and set up and did it. And only about 200 people came, but we got kicked out the park because we didn't have permits. We just, you know what I mean? So they let us get away with a little bit of it, but the following year we realized we had to, like anything, we had to research how you do this legit, you know. We did, and 200 people, you know, over 21 years. It's 21 years now. Let's see, we're going 22. This thing just kept doubling, and some things happened that made it blow up anymore. I mean, first it was in the second week of August. Now in Baltimore, the second week of August is the hottest days of the year. So one thing about people of color, they don't like sitting in the sun. So because of an incident that happened within the organization, we had to move it to Labor Day, and that's the first week of September. The weather's better. There's less thunderstorms. There's less things that could shut you down. In August, we was getting thunderstorms, you know, that would come out of nowhere and lightning and, you know, all the kind of stuff that would shut it down occasionally. And the best thing that happened to us to move it on Labor Day. When we moved it on Labor Day, we was in this park with our normal attendance of about 5,000. We up to like 5,000. This is 12 years ago. And the Freddie Gray thing happened in Baltimore. So, right. So this was a week after that, the whole riot, you know, about Freddie Gray. And so we said, we're not going to cancel this. We're not, you know what I mean? So, you know, people still want to come. We had no idea. In hindsight, we had no idea. So that what was going to happen. We was like, you know, we still obligated to do it. You know, a lot of people, this is their one chance to, for lack of a better word, be house for a day. Because as you get older, you got responsibilities, you got kids in college, so you can't hang out in the clubs. You can't. But on this one day, people looked at it as I can enjoy house music on this one day. And I can bring my family. And I can, you know what I mean? I can introduce them to it because this is what I used to do when I was 18. And I love this music. But unbeknownst to us, Baltimore was in severe pain. So about the whole Freddie Gray thing, there was a lot of administration, a lot of police, a lot of issue, a lot of people mad, and angry, and you know, destruction. We got 15,000 people came out, and then we realized we already knew this, but house music is an expression. It's a relief. It's where you go when you can't take it anymore. You know, like, I can go here and listen to this music, and I can close my eyes, and the world as it is doesn't exist. I can let the music take me away. And 15,000 people showed up. We was not prepared. I mean, blocked streets, people was parking sideways, and I had police chasing after me saying, "You didn't say 15,000 people to come." I said, "How would I supposed to know that?" Out everywhere, helicopters flying over, news cameras, and the city itself is saying, "What? How did this little group turn out to be an outcry for Baltimore?" Because we selling peace and we're selling peace and hair grease. We don't condone alcohol, marijuana, or anything that is with this that our family should be around, and we advocate for that. Like, you know what? Because I come from punch clubs. To me, it doesn't need to be about alcohol. That's a trick that society is trying to make y'all believe that you need alcohol to have a good time. When in house music, all I need is a bottle of water. That's all I need. So we kind of push that on the people, like, bring your family. We're gonna protect your family. We'll make sure they're not around elements that we wouldn't want our family on. Well, it kind of got around after the week before the whole Freddie Gray thing, when Baltimore was kind of shut down. You know what I mean? It was kind of like in shock that things happened, and that things that we knew was there actually we could see it. You know what I mean? So those people came out, and 15,000 people just communed in Drew Hill Park. And it was also the year we moved into the trees. It was just a great idea. It's like, you know what? They don't like the sun. So normally we would be in an open field, and that means people started making notes saying, "I'm not coming till after 5." Why? Because the sun goes from here to there. So came up with this great idea. Let's move to a better area that has trees. And that changed the whole thing. It changed the whole thing. It just was huge. And it just gave us power to believe that in voters, because we always advocate for voting, reading, blood pressure, glaucoma, homelessness, mental health, HIV. We make sure that we always use our house platform to get messages that the other people can't get to. Like, you know what, we're gonna make sure. Go over there and get tested for high blood pressure. You know what I mean? Go do this, do that. And because they trust in us, we have the kind of power, like, hey, they gonna hurt you. Why not? Go there and do that. So we made sure that our agenda was an outreach. And when powers that be see that, it opens a little bit more doors for you, because the preconceptions of what happens when Black people get together, because of our hyper youth, they don't trust it. You know what I mean? And to them, they don't see youth and old people nothing. They just see Black people. And it's like, we all don't do that. If you protect them and you don't allow them to drink, you don't, what I mean? There's certain things that we put in place so that we didn't have fights or nothing. We didn't have to call ambulance because somebody's laying up drunk, or you know what I mean, or people are being harassed. For some reason, this love fest was contagious. And people that weren't even house heads were there and dancing the house music. And every year they returned, because they said, you know what, I don't care for the music, but I care for the vibe. I care for the fact that I'm not going to hear gunshots and have to run. I'm there because, you know what, they have enough police to get to stop that from happening. People are not drunk. People, you know what I mean, things that make any race act out. Anything. So that meant that we kept going. It's like, okay, you know what? We outgrew the park. So we had to move. We had to move to a place where we could control. So we moved to this school called Poly here in Baltimore that had a core inside place where we could put something on the door, so we could control who came. Because once we realized that, and while it was glorified to have that after Freddie Gray's incident, we was worried that we couldn't protect everybody. And in any city, if you can't protect somebody and something happens, you won't be able to do nothing ever again. Nothing. They will shut every door there possibly is. So the best idea was to contain it. You know what I mean? And you can't contain a park. but you can contain inside of school grounds where you have to come to an entrance. You know what I mean? So we could put 6,000 people plus in this place, and we did that for a couple years, and it regained its original followers. You know what I mean? Not people just riding down the street and say, "Where that music coming from?" I'm going over there. Which kept the whole mission of Collect the Minds. It's like, you know what, this is for the house heads that in the world in Baltimore, like in most major cities, they're shutting down our nightlife. You know what I mean? They won't you see very few clubs and very few clubs if you do of color. You know what I mean? It's just with our youth coming along and hanging out front, and you know what I mean, they're not doing anything wrong, they just young, so their idea of a good time is fighting each other. It's some, not all, but you know what I mean. And people, the administration and officials of Baltimore don't think that's a good idea to allow that to happen. We'll collect the minds. What we do is show a more mature crowd and a more happy crowd. All the pictures, people are smiling. You know what I mean? You know, we have community organizations there. We do all the stuff to try to make it, to change the idea of what a gathering with Black people is. You know what I mean? To us, it was a mission. It's like, you know what? We're voters. You know what I mean? And so eventually we had delegates, senators, lawyers coming in with their families. So we knew we had a secret, you know, that people trusted. But like anything, it in those back rooms in City Hall or whatever like this, you have people that say we can't let that happen, and it can't happen on my watch because I can't lose my job. I get it. You know what I mean? You don't know what house is, and all you know is when you put a whole bunch of people together and people get hurt, you get in trouble. So I'm not saying it's a prejudice or discriminating thing. It's just a matter of keep everybody's worrying about their job, like the Democrats. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, it's not that they don't believe in what they're doing, but you can't piss off the other people that are concerned about losing their jobs. So every battle we had to do to grow, we had to almost prove ourselves that house music is a love fest. So and you do it on one person at a time. The officials will come and say, "Okay, I'm going here," and they look around and said, "This is really beautiful," and that's how we get through stuff by having a flawless record of no violence, a flawless record of no drugs or we don't even allow cursing because we got family there. You know what I mean? I want you. You got. I know kids that were born in 2001 that are in college now. Come up and say, "Hey, Mr. Thommy." I say, "Wait a minute! I remember you as a baby in Drew Hill Park." That is the most. I'm almost great going tears now because I'm looking at something that people thought never was going to make it, and I'm watching generations come and go. And it's like, you know what, your life is worth something. You know what I mean? While the world might say that this is a fad, no, this is a good thing. And I'm watching families come up and grow, and Collective Minds is that.
Amazing, amazing story. I want to pivot. I want to talk about Baltimore and New York.
Okay.
This question is from Kai in Germany. He wants to know, was there ever a relationship between the Baltimore scene and the golden days of New York City clubbing?
Um, a relationship, an actual relationship, no. But those of us in Baltimore that was starving for the sound, like I said couple half an hour ago, New York was the sound. You know what I mean? It had the sound that we was all looking for. It had the artists. You know what I mean? It had the creativity to do it. So we would drive 5 hours from Baltimore to go up to New York to had to be in the Shelter or Sound Factory or Bonds or Red or it's plenty. I can't even name all the clubs that are gone since then. And what happened is not because house Chicago, it's because the mayor and the people in New York had this. What I just talked about in Baltimore happened in New York, and they said no, we want to whitewash Manhattan. Now Manhattan used to be the place. We would go up there and be like, oh, this is so great. You know what I mean? The clubs, there was clubs everywhere to go dance and just have fun. And when they made it into Disney World and moved it, so now we have to go even further. We have to go to the Bronx to get this. You know, we don't think about Manhattan. What's in Manhattan? Nothing. I mean, if I want to take kids or pay $16 for a cappuccino, no, I'm going to the Bronx. I'm going to Brooklyn. I'm going to different places that didn't have a mayor that frowned upon intermingling of cultures. Yeah, so every city did that. Baltimore did it, and they all did it. Made dancing a dirty word. You know what I mean? It's dirty dancing. We can't let that know. We need to put bars. We need to make money on the bars. So, like, you know what? We make sure that they can't have a club that don't have alcohol, and that way we make convince them that alcohol is the center. You know what I mean? Where in New York, you could go to clubs. They could have a bar, but nobody. There was no long line to get a drink. They would. You a househead. I'm not gonna get drunk. I want to be able to dance. I want to be able to be so wet. So we mourned when New York, when we mourned Lloyd Levan, because to us he was like, wow, you know, this is a club where Richard Long sound system, Grace Jones, Colonel Ableton, you know, like, wow, we could go up here and soak up the tapestry of New York that used to be a melting pot of everything. And so the network connection is just that. We wouldn't be Baltimore if it wasn't for New York and Jersey, you know, because we could kind of get BLS, but BLS kind of introduced people that wasn't even in the clubs to this sound. You know what I mean? Tony Humphreys and Merlin Bob and all of them, they was feeding the ears of New York. And when you do that, you enhance the people that come out of it. You know what I mean? So we went up there to be a part of that and soak it up in Basement Boys and stuff, so on and so on. You know, not every Baltimorean can run up and down the coast, or even to know where to run. So they didn't know that I need to go to East Orange to go to America, or I need to go, I need to go up here, go to this club first. I'm gonna go to the Nickel Bar and just listen to Ted Patterson or something, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to the shelter, and then I'm going to drive all 5 hours back to Baltimore at 12 o'clock the next day in the afternoon. That lifestyle, we just wanted a piece of it. So, what's his name in Germany? And yes, there's connection. And even to this day, a lot of New Yorkers, me, Spen, and Quantize, we work with because we know what they did. We know how we got to be where we are, and we couldn't have got there without the education of New York in its best days.
That's perfect, which leads me to my next question. Tell us your favorite memory from the Paradise Garage.
I don't have any. I didn't like it much.
Oh, tell us about that. Please break that down. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
I know, and they're going to be throwing darts at me and stuff. But
Oh, keep it 100. Keep it 100.
it's just from my perspective. So I am a product of Odell's here in Baltimore, the Clubhouse in DC, uh, David Todd at Catacombs, and Tony Humphries at Zanzibar. These are mixed aficionados. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm going to the garage, and I just happened to go on a night where he was just letting records go off. And I was like, I can't take this. I can't take them sitting on the middle of the floor, like waiting for this something to happen. And he let the record go off. And I had come from all these masters at it. You know what I mean? I'm thinking the garage is going to be all this. And I only went twice. And both times it was a niche that I wasn't in tone with. To me, music was a continuum of melody, of blend, of, you know what I mean, of message. And he would just arrogantly do stuff. And I felt like a DJ had to work. You know what I mean? And so my friends, I was there, and it was like, "Yo, this is the garage, yo. This is the joint." I'm like, "Nah, I'll be at the bus station," because I couldn't do it. You know what I mean? I just couldn't. I couldn't feel the energy I needed. I needed that consistent. You know what I mean? So I could convince myself that I'm gonna stay up here and I'm going to drive 5 hours back. You know, to me, even now, if I go to a club and a DJ is playing like I'm educating you and you're playing some elevator music, I'm gone. I'm gone. My idea is David Todd. My idea is Ron Hardy. My idea is Mandrill in DC at the clubhouse and Tito. My idea, and these guys were bam. I mean, I wish I wouldn't be the DJ I am if it wasn't listening to them and saying, I gotta learn this like that. You know what I mean? So maybe my I need to say this. I just didn't go to the better parties at the garage. You know what I mean? I didn't go when Grace Jones performed. I didn't go, you know what I mean, and was elbow to elbow with celebrities or nothing. I came in as an out of towner. I don't know what to do. Maybe I'm not taking the right drugs. You know, it was hodgepodge of everything, and I couldn't just feel it. So I much respect Larry because I love his productions, I love his music, I love you know what I mean. I love tapes that I can hear of him, but I didn't feel right going 5 hours and not knowing what mood he was going to be in. Like hold it. When I go to Zanzibar, and Tony's always, I'm gonna be the last one to leave. I could go to Philly and hear the Catacombs and hear David Todd, and he would just crush me to death. Like, wow, playing 4 turntables at once. Like, wow, who does that? You know, so I'm a DJ. So when I say I didn't like it, I say it as a DJ. You know what I mean? I come from a DJ era. I come from a time when the craft is to drive the crowd crazy in the mix. You know, it had nothing to do with the man because you know what? He did some things that changed music point blank. So I'm not taking nothing from him, nothing at all. You know what I mean? I could name friends and artists that made it through him. So I just said personally, as a dancer, I couldn't get it.
Thank you for that. Whatever happened, let's go back to DC. Whatever happened to the sanctuary in DC?
What happens to all clubs? You know, eventually zoning, bad administration. You know, I've been doing this long enough to know that a club has average 6 years. 6 years. You know what I mean? If you go past 6 years, you're a phenomenon because a lot can happen. There's zoning, there's, you know, different change of hands, there are different peoples and different styles of managing it. There's sound systems that cost more to update them than you make it on the door. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things. And clubs tend to go for the crowd they shouldn't to make pay the bills. And once you let that other crowd in there, it'll shut you down. So the the sanctuary was in a row house, and Red, where Mandrill and them played, was within the bottom of a basement. And you know, it, and when I tell people that if you really count how long a club of, you know, the max, if you lucky, is 10 years. You can't name a club that can say 20 years because in a generation you have your main supporters, but eventually they get old. You know what I mean? And they don't come out. They've been doing it for a long time, and they stop supporting it. You know what I mean? Not because something the club did. They just need something else, and it'll shut a club down. That'll, you know, because a club needs everybody to come up to pay the light bills, to keep the price cheap. You know what I mean? All these things happen, and when people all of a sudden sway to the new joint, I need to go over here, that club has to close down. The old club that you used to go to regularly has to close down because there's no way I can pay for the liquor license or the rental in Manhattan. You know what I mean? Or those things are important, and people don't understand why a club can't make it if you don't fully support it. You know, fully. You know what I mean? You need to go even when you don't want to go. It's like, you know, if you wanted to be around, they need you to support. And that's what happens to most clubs. Even in Baltimore, I can name many, many clubs. There were great clubs. Like, wow, this gonna be around forever, ever. Under 6 years. Under 6 years. It's just the way things go. No, many, many causes. None of them have to be the same, but most clubs is about 6 years before it becomes a problem. Either a good problem where you got too many people and they on the streets and they on the parking lots and the police like we can't deal with this. You got to shut them down because the club itself could be fine, but the people attending are blocks and blocks around your neighborhood. That becomes a problem for the neighborhood. Eventually, they win the battle of getting it shut down. Eventually. So yeah, so the sanctuary, tracks in DC, clubhouse. These are clubs you thought you would swear would be around a long time, but they also have to deal with the heyday and then the not heyday. You know what I mean? You can have it can come up on holidays. You know what I mean? People start only coming out when you have Colonel Abrams. But next week when I have nobody, I ain't even got 1/4 for y'all in here. How am I gonna pay this bill? Oh, I'm going today because Rochelle Fleming, first choice, gonna be at this club. But next week, nobody go. I mean, not enough. And when you start investing in sound systems, money, employees, and all that kind of stuff, you need to have your people to keep coming to keep you open. Then nobody's getting rich. They just really trying to provide it. Now, if they raise the price up and say, okay, you know what? It used to be $25 to get into the clubhouse or the sanctuary. Now it's 50. Guess what? They stop coming in. It's like, you know what? When I charge you what I need to stay open, you're not gonna come. You want me to keep it cheap, and then you don't want to show up all the time.
Thank
So
No, sorry, keep going.
a lot of people had offered me clubs. I won't do it. I was like, I did this club in Baltimore called Buns. 17 years. Every Friday. I only missed 2 because I had to go out overseas. But I even turned down gigs just to stay at this club because I knew how precious our era is. This club was boom. It helped the people in the world to say, I wish I could come to Baltimore because I heard about this club. You know what I mean? And it had the thing that the catacombs in the garage and Zanzibar had, but you know it's going to be short lived. So I stuck it, and for 17 years, nonstop, which is like being a great grandfather for a club. I was there every Friday, and when they finally closed, it was like it was heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Like when the Paradise closed, I think Paradise closed twice. And they had 3-day parties, and I stayed in the club for 3 days. For 3 days, stayed in a club because I just couldn't let go. You know what I mean? A lot of people that's non-house heads they don't know how much a part of your life this is. You know what I mean? I was 18 when I started. I'm 50 something now, and I'm still here. Guess what? I don't have heart problems, high blood pressure. Why? Because I'm still dancing. I'm still moving every weekend. And believe it or not, that keeps that most house heads look really, really great. They can still move because they never stopped. You know what I mean? They never stopped. They just said, no, I'll find a way to go keep dancing. And as you get older, you don't use it, you lose it. So when this club closed, I was broken down. We even fought the city to keep it open, but land, real estate, things happen like in other cities and stuff. So I had to say, okay, goodbye. And that was the last residency that I took because I said, I can't go through this again. I can't actually watch something and go and watch the city feel great about it, puffing that chef up. Like, we shut that down. It's like, what? And this was a gay club. And, after HIV, which just kind of destroyed the gay clubs, the founder of house music people, and all of a sudden they considered it a bad thing to say I want to be around gays because they have AIDS. I was like, where do y'all get these facts from? You know, you don't have no respect. Your uncle gay, and I just couldn't get this whole new thing after HIV where people wanted to segregate from each other. You know what I mean? Before we used to all party together. Now all of a sudden, you gotta be pro heterosexual and you gotta be pro gay, and y'all can't be together. It's, in the early days, there wasn't that. There wasn't that. We just the music was so sacred that we understood that we had to do this together. All of a sudden, people just said, "No, no, I hate that." They started saying in Baltimore, "Man, that house, man, that's music," which is a term for gay people. Like that's gay music. It was like, what are y'all talking about? How is music ever gay? But it was part of a Black African American culture that pretty much want things to stay the same. You know, they're just like, you know what, we don't want that weird sounding music, just like, you know what, and y'all dress funny. You know what I mean? The kind of individuality that house music breeds. You know what I mean? It wasn't gay. It was just that they considered anything that didn't look like them is gay. So after HIV, and we lost 75% of the community, artists, clubs, and everything, then fortunately, the people that loved it that weren't gay found a way to bring it back. But they got rid of the gay connotations, which is the only way they could do it. So now they feel like they invented it, and they don't talk about the history where it came from, because that would have to go back to the connotations that the reason why people didn't get along. So now you see house music as a heterosexual thing. It's like, wow, like, okay, y'all just forgot where the roots came from. Like, that's going to be something bad to know that uh Voyage and Lady America and YMCA and you know, that these records set the tone for where you are today. So how can you ignore or act like you invented something that you weren't even born for? You never been in a loft. You don't even know what a loft is. So they don't know it. And it was I'm saying it in a good and bad situation. It saved it that they adopted it. You know what I mean? And they adopted and picked up house when it was almost gone. You know what I mean? Almost. And they adopted it, and they started playing R&B mashes, you know, stuff like this. You would hear a Brandy song with a house beat, and it made it easy for them to conform without the gay connotations. You know what I mean? So now you can have hip hop records mixed with house records. You can have Afro records, reggae records mixed with house records. So now no longer does it have that negative um, association. To them, negative. It's not really a negative thing, but to them, it was a negative association. So they would never go to the garage. They would never go to the clubhouse. They would never go to fat. They would never go to Paradox. Oh, gay people hang there. It's like, what are you talking about? You haven't even been there. But people see anything that's different as gay. And they don't mean homosexual. They mean not us. That's what they mean, not us. So when I saw my friends die, and you know, I mean, from Colonel Abrams to Herman to, you know, to Vesta, and I was like, you know what? I'm always gonna be different, because if they don't see different, then they're gonna always believe that there is one thing. So Tommy Davis with him, I've always been this way, but I've been more advocate. Like, you know what? You can have all these DJs on here, but I'm gonna be where I came from. You know what I mean? I'm gonna represent what y'all know nothing about. In the way I play, in the way I love, in the way I believe in people. And you know what I mean? Just without that, that's what house music is. It's like, how can you be house music but you hate each other? It's like, y'all got the wrong idea here. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent. Sorry.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good night.
Like.
Peace.